Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw. Played 11 seasons in the NHL for the New York Rangers, Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all about the comings and goings in hockey. And this week we have an interesting topic today. I want to get into the new television contract, which impacts all hockey fans. And to help us do that, we've got one of our regular guests, Dwayne Klessel. You know him as Eklund on HockeyBuzz.com. Ek, thanks for joining us.
The legend.
Thanks.
The legend.
Thanks. It's so nice to be here. It is, and talk. You know, one of my favorite topics, cord cutting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of what happened. We've had NBC for a long time, and I'm going to actually write a column on this on your website, Ek, this week. One of the things that concerns me about this is I think we've sort of forgotten what it was like when we weren't, we being the hockey world, the number one priority of a network. With the NBC Sports Network, hockey, the NHL was important to that network. There was, they were a main programming for the network. We always knew we were going to get our pregame shows and our postgame shows. The last time that we had someone other than NBC, we had ESPN. And what did we always complain about? They had Hockey Tonight, but you never knew when it was going to be on. You didn't even know whether it would be on because it was preemptive. And on that network, we're certainly not going to be the number one sport. They've got baseball, they've got football, they've got all kinds of things there. I just wonder whether we're going to get the same treatment. That's my only concern. I'm sure this is going to be a wonderful thing. It's always good to get new perspectives. But do you think, we're going to get good treatment?
I think the whole way we have to look at treatment has to change. It's changing. Like I think that to me the toughest thing about I wrote an article on this yesterday a little bit. I sort of just had some fun with like some of the historical things with television in the U.S., like the Peter Puck days and the showdowns, the player showdowns, which I loved. When they used to have the showdown in between periods, stuff like that between players. All the things he tried to do in the U.S. to keep it interesting for new fans. But it's changed so much. Like to me, like the way we used to care so much about Sports Center. Like Sports Center was how often are you on Sports Center, and people, I don't think the way people get their information now is so different. People aren't sitting down for Sports Center necessarily. To me, the most important thing about ESPN is that it's on in every bar. Like the one I will give you that. Like I'll give the one thing to be ESPN. NHL games usually when you go around. Even today, you have to sometimes ask to put the game on, like at a bar. Like, you can put the hockey game on, like whatever. But ESPN's always on in a bar, so that I think that's an advantage. But beyond that, how people watch hockey now and how people watch their sports and how people watch everything now is so different that it's so hard to really grasp this. Grasp really what is and what isn't good about this.
I agree totally. I guess I'm out of touch too. So NBC won't be covering any of the games at all anymore?
Yeah, they're done.
Oh wow,
they're done. They're cutting off NBC Sports altogether, like the NBC Sports.
Yeah,
channel.
that when that happened, I wondered how that was going to impact negotiations. But I will say that I was told that employees of NBC thought through last weekend there was still a chance they were going to get some games. So it wasn't like it was a done deal. Or at least they were not informed. They were still hopeful that, nobody said the NBC had it, but they thought they were in, negotiations, and there was a possibility that, it would be ESPN and NBC. Maybe the person that I was talking to was out of touch, but, I don't think they saw this bullet coming.
I think, and it's kind of interesting, Kevin, because I think that really, I talked to people at the NHL yesterday when I was working on my article, and the article I was trying to write, I never got enough information to actually write that article because there were so many different things happening. But at the same time, the NHL the guy at the NHL reminded me that the NHL does not like one thing about negotiations, and they do not like at all if you act like you need them more than they need you. And that's happened every time in NHL's history of negotiating. It happened with ESPN back way back when, in 88, 89, in that era, when ESPN was like, really lowballing them and saying, you need us more than we need you. We're going to lowball you. And what did NHL do in the U.S.? They went to Sports Channel America, remember, for 3 years. Sports Channel America existed. And then it happened right after the lockout again, where ESPN, lowballed them. And that's when they went to OLN/Versus, ending up in NBC. But it wasn't NBC originally. It was OLN, how it worked out. So, and this is another instance, I think, in this case, where in the past two cases, they said to ESPN, no, we're not, you don't need us. We don't need you more than you need us. We're going to take the money that's higher and do that. And in this case, NBC was the one, I think, that kind of felt like a little bit of an entitled thing. Like, we've been there. We were the ones who do, we're going to give you all this extra coverage. And they said, you know what, ESPN's offered us more money. And, and they kind of felt justified, because to them, there's the money they get from ESPN, which is a lot of money for, for a hockey contract, is a part result of them playing hardball with ESPN in '89 and 2004. ESPN's like, we're going to have to pony up here.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very similar to the. Sorry, Kev, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, it's very similar to the contract and the CBA negotiations too, right? I mean, they locked the doors for a whole year.
There you go.
To get the cap, and then when they now went to do the next one, they still had a little bit of a lockout, but they showed, listen, we're not just giving in now. We're gonna do on. Yeah, well, good point.
Yeah, but this time around, they couldn't offer them, they being NBC, what they did last time. As I mentioned, the NHL was the 800-pound gorilla on the NBC Sports Network. They were really important to that network. Well, that network isn't going to exist. And there were folks who were wondering where the NHL would be. And I mean, they have plenty of other stations, but were they going to be spread around, or how was it? Was it going to kind of work out? So this time around, they really couldn't offer, that sort of distinction like they did last time. They still could give them, and let's face it, you always find a bunch of people who will quibble about, they didn't like Pierre Maguire, or they didn't like what NBC did with this and did with that. But as a whole, NBC did a great job covering the NHL. They gave us every playoff game. They gave us professional announcers. I mean, you may not like this personality or that personality, but there was no doubt that they were dedicated to giving quality broadcast of the NHL. So, you got to commend NBC for doing a good job. They raised the level of television coverage, by far. And maybe it was time to move on. I would not say that it wasn't. Because I don't know enough about what was going on behind the scenes. One of the things that is going to be interesting is not that there's a whole lot of casual NHL fans that just kind of tune in for the Stanley Cup final, but it is going to be a little confusing for the fan that isn't all that dedicated to watching, because each year he's going to have to figure out where he's got to go to see the Stanley Cup final, because they're going to be on different networks in different years.
But that's a general issue right now with television in general. Like, I think that, also too, you think so? I mean, like if you, I mean, I don't know if you guys, are still working off of cable boxes or Roku boxes or Apple TVs or whatever, but like my wife is a PhD, engineer, and she has not yet figured out how to find things on Apple TV. Like, she's just gets so frustrated by the whole thing. She's like, and my son and I, are zip through. We can find, every show that's on there. What I think you're going to see to fix that, Kevin, in the near future is you're starting to see with some of the Android TV stuff. And I keep on top of, I keep an Android box here, and I have a TV box here, just to kind of keep on top of all this stuff. And now the new thing is to make sort of the Hulu, whether something's on Hulu, whether something's on, HBO Max, whether something's on Paramount or whatever, make that as invisible as possible and just show the person on the thing, this is the hockey game, click on it, you're going to go to it, you're going to see it, this is this, these are the things you like. That's moving, that's where this is heading. We're in a really weird transition phase right now, but I think that's where it's heading, and I think the NHL kind of sees that to a degree. Like, where it is on doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to, and it's why I'm surprised at the money they got, honestly, because the networks, people aren't going to watch it on ESPN. And the reason usually people pony up a lot of money is because they want to get, something that they really like, that'll like lead into other shows, that'll help, boost ratings of other shows, and that kind of stuff's just not happening. You're not sitting there watching ESPN and like, oh, what's on next on ESPN? You know, when you're watching a hockey game, you're not thinking that.
Well, I'm going to get your guys' opinion on this. Like, I for a long time, I've always, like, you hear fans say all the time, the casual fan, that I just don't understand the game, right? What is an offside? What is an icing? All that. And I don't get why we don't do more to educate the fans, right? I mean, like, is it during the game you do stuff? Do you want to have other explain it to them? Because to me, maybe I'm wrong. It seems like to me, all the people I talk to that are not big time hockey fans don't watch it because of the fact they can't understand the rules.
Well, before we went on air, Tom and I were talking about, nutrition and food, and because Tom obviously is really into nutrition, and I pointed out that McDonald's has tried numerous things to have us eat healthier, and we would just refuse to buy them.
Yeah.
So they
I know where you're going.
Yeah, so we just stick to buying the Big Mac. So in some respects, it's not McDonald's fault unless we just want them to go away. And I think several of the teams that have, I remember Nashville for sure did this. I think Columbus did a little bit of this. I think they had offered like classes for people to come with, and it it wasn't all that successful. People didn't really want to. They sort of want to learn it as they go along. And, it's sort of like when ESPN put the X Games on, they would sort of explain the race, but they just assumed you would figure it out as you watched it. And that's kind of what happened. But I want to talk about one other thing that Eklund sort of talked about, but you kind of glossed over it, and I think it's a bigger deal is, you say ESPN is on in the bars all the time, but is it? It's my understanding. I have adult children, and that are sports fans, and from talking to their friends, ESPN is not as big. In fact, it's not even on the radar for some younger people who have moved elsewhere for their information, and so they don't have it on, and they wouldn't expect to see it on in a bar. So I think maybe when the bars have older ownership, they might be on there, but I'm not so sure if it's owned by a 30 or a 40-year-old person whether he would have.
Well, I think there's two different things there. I think at home, you're not going to there was a time when I would just put ESPN on in my house, and it would be running all day long, and I would watch it. But that I don't do anymore. I agree, because I don't want to watch the stuff that's on ESPN most of the day. I prefer ESPN original, like with Australian rules football to this. I want to see that old ESPN. But but in sports bars though, if I've worked, it's going to be on there because like they have 35 TVs, like all this stuff around there. And what are you going to leave on? You're going to leave on, if you're the bartender, I've worked in bars, and stuff like that. You're going to leave on ESPN and you're going to leave on NBC Sports.
I think that was true 10, 15 years ago, but now I think they have MLB Network. They have NHL Network. Those are the things that they.
Well, you guys are a couple of degenerates hanging out at bars all the time.
Us, Kevin and I.
But I did. I haven't been out at all during COVID. But when I was in South Carolina, I went to whatever that, and it's terrible that I can't remember the name of it. Where you can go and you can golf.
I know golf.
What is it? You golf.
Golf, right?
Top Golf, yeah. And there's televisions in there, and I just took a peek as we were going through the bar area there, and that's what I noted, that they had on MLB Network, and I didn't see the preponderance of games and things that they normally would have. So I'm not suggesting that this wasn't a good decision to go there, not at all. I just wanted to remind people about what it was like, and that NBC had done a good job, and maybe it was time to move on from NBC. If they didn't have a place to put hockey where it would be regular, and I'm with your wife, by the way, in terms of trying to figure out where things are, but finding I think it was my son or my daughter just got frustrated and basically took the flicker, as I call it, and put it in my hand and pressed the voice command and said, "This is what you do. You just say, say hockey or say the show you're looking
Yeah, right.
for, and it'll tell you where it is. That's all you do.
Oh yeah, no, and you know, and she's just so funny about it because she's like, you know, she knows she's never had an issue with anything technologically until this. And I said it is really confusing, and there's no question about it that, you know, I mean, and that's why some people are slow to it, but they really are working hard on those interfaces to get them less confusing, to get them more user friendly, and that will come, and that will happen. There will come a point when, you know, it just, because TiVo, if you remember TiVo in the olden days, like that when TiVo first came out, TiVo had this thing where it would recommend shows for you, you know, because it based on what you watched. That's the new thing with these things that are really interesting. You know, they're getting good at that. They watch what you watch, and then, you know, and then you see stuff. Oh yeah, that's a show that I like to watch, and it's on here. It's on now. Really, the way we're watching things is so different. And I think the only thing to finish the bar thought, Kev, like with ESPN is, you know, even if ESPN's not on, I mean, how many times have you been in this situation? I'm in a bar and I want to watch the game, and I have to tell them it's on NBC Sports Network or it's on the NHL Network, and there's someone fumbling back there where, you know, you say, oh, the game's on ESPN. That's just easier. You know, they all know. You know, I mean, and I've been in that spot before where, you know, trying to fumble around to find where the game is. You know, I think the ESPN thing is, we have to remember back to how we felt about all the things you're saying right now about NBC. They gave us all the playoffs. They really gave a good. That's what we were saying about ESPN when ESPN had hockey way back when. They were the first to give us all the playoffs. They were the first to give us all that. You know, that was the first time we saw all that. And because remember, a big reason that ESPN had the NHL was they were launching ESPN2. Which was, you know, that's where NHL 2 night with a 2 was on ESPN2. Right. And they were all about that. So now there's ESPN 2, 3, 4, 5, and plus or what have you. So I don't think there's any problem as to where the games are going to be. There's going to be space for them. People are worried about, oh, there's not going to be space for them. There's ESPN has a lot of networks.
It's interesting, Eck, you talk about how things have changed, how we get our news. And it made me think back when Wayne Gretzky got traded that day. And I had ESPN on the whole day, right? And now, if that was something like that was to happen, I probably wouldn't even have the TV on. I just have the iPad in front of me, looking up the news, right?
You'd be looking up the news, or you have the NHL Network, or, you know, because there's the concept of an NHL Network when Wayne Gretzky was traded was just a pipe dream that would never exist. You know, there wouldn't be a television cable network that just had the NHL on it. That doesn't make any sense. Who would watch such a thing? Yeah. You know, I remember all this. So where we are now compared to where we were then, and you know, and I'm all for Tom bringing back Peter Puck to teach people how to play hockey. Because that. Peter Puck, that's what Peter Puck was. That's what the concept was, you know.
And I hate to agree with Kevin though, but it is true, right? I mean, you think of that casual fan, are they going to sit there and watch some demonstration on what an offside is, right? Would they do that?
No, you know what really has worked for the casual fans, and I'm a huge believer in this, is certain announcers, certain play-by-play guys are just good at teaching the sport. Those are the guys that really, and this is why I still to this day think that Pete Weber is as important to the Nashville Predators organization as anybody ever was to that organization, because there was a whole bunch of people there who didn't understand hockey. But Pete, if you watch Pete Weber's broadcast, you know, for the first several years there, he was so good at explaining it without making it sound like he was talking down to somebody. Because he would explain what was happening. And in Philadelphia, we had Gene Hart do the same kind of thing. You know, that's what he did here too.
Yeah.
So.
And it's subtle with Pete. You know, he would just say he shot the puck from his own side of the ice and it crossed the line, so it'll be an icing call.
Yeah, that's what we call icing here in the NHL.
No, he wouldn't even say that. He'd just say that'll be an icing. You know, like he's just calling the situation. Well, it's confusing though, even for the regular fans. Is that, you know, our game is changing. Like. In the old days, you would never shoot if you were down deep in your zone. Shoot for an empty net. You want to chip it out. But now coaches are not only tolerating but encouraging players to shoot for that.
I know.
Analytics, right? The analytics tell you
that's better. Analytics. That's all about analytics.
But you know what's interesting about analytics? You guys ever heard you guys are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell? Who does, you know, he's a really interesting guy. He's written a lot of books, and he has a really good podcast out there. And he did a whole podcast on because he's from Toronto, he's a hockey fan. He did a whole podcast on the fact that it would make more sense if a team was down by one goal to pull their goalie with 10 minutes left to go in the game than it would not to. And it's just and this kind of analytics is, you know, and obviously if we've all played that's ludicrous, right? No one would ever do that, but you know, we've seen that. I mean, Patrick Waugh took pulling the goalie from 1 minute left in the game to like 2.5 minutes left in the game, And now it's fallen back to like somewhere around 2 minutes left in the game, where if the goalie is not out by 2 minutes left, people are freaking out,
Yeah. No, that's great. Before we let you go, I did want to talk a little bit about the playoff races.
Yep.
The one I wanted to start with is in the Central, where last night I thought it was so much fun that we had Dallas and Nashville, two teams that are competing, and is it 2 points or 4 points? 4 points, I think. But Dallas has 2 games in hand, so they're both playing. The Nashville has Florida, and of course Dallas has Carolina.
Oh yeah.
And Dallas got nowhere with Carolina and got thumped, but it looked like Nashville was going to beat Florida, but no, Florida rose up and then ended up, I think, beating them 7-3 or 7-4.
Oh man, if Florida gets any goaltending, they're going to be dangerous, because you see how much they outshoot teams by. Like last night was a typical thing. They double up team shots over every game. The Florida just they just fire. So it was great. And that race is, and now they play on Saturday, right? The Nashville and Dallas play on Saturday. The one thing I love about this more than anything else, I was telling my son about this the other day. We were walking around, and because I realized as we were walking, he's like, who's going to make the playoffs? And I said, well, in the Central Division, it's going to be the 2 Florida teams, Carolina, Nashville, maybe Dallas. And he's like, oh, that sounds more like the Southern Division. I'm like, yeah, it actually does, doesn't it? And I love the fact that we're looking at, these teams that have never had rivalries in the South, but have rivalries in every other like college sport and everything like that, like Tennessee and Florida and Carolina and Texas. Those are big time college football teams, and big time college basketball rivals, right? Finally getting their chance in hockey to build up these rivalries. And I think it's fantastic. Like, I want to find a way to keep those teams together in the future somehow, because I think what we're going to see in these playoffs is going to be outstanding, like, tailgating before the playoff game type stuff and everything that's going to be going on. It's going to be unbelievably fun. And no matter how you slice it, even if it's Dallas or Nashville, you're still in the South, you're still in the Southeast almost, it's pretty crazy.
Hey, Yak, before we let you go, I got one question. And being a former Ranger, I actually kind of happy to say this. So Bill Birdie tells me that the Flyers have turned into a country club there. And that's part of the reason they're not doing well. Is that accurate?
It's probably not too far off. I don't think I think that's pretty curious. And it's a messed up. It's a really weird scene. They have to do something drastic this summer, and I don't know if they will, because I don't know that their GM is that, is a drastic type of guy. Like if he's willing to do that. Like he hasn't shown in the past anywhere he's been to be a drastic type of guy. And I think part of what got him out of Minnesota is they wanted more stuff done. I don't know. It's tough.
It's not just the fact that they're losing, but it's the way they're playing. It's like it's not the old Broad Street Bullies. You know that, but they're certainly not playing with any fire. Yeah.
No, and I mean, you remember you played in the era of Ed Snyder, and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just that is missed. So people want Pronger back. People really should want Snyder back. That's the reality, is that's the thing that the Flyers are lacking, and it's really being around the team a lot. It's incredibly frustrating to see them accept things that they never accepted before.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
And just become an easy team to beat, which is, they're easy to play against. That if you said, if anybody told Ed Snyder, anybody, that your team is easy to play against, heads rolled, Yeah.
Well, Ekwa, it's been a pleasure to have you. We thanks for joining us and talking about the new television contract and these playoffs.
Always wonderful.
All right. Always glad to have you. Thanks.
Good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
That was Wayne Klessel, Eklund of Hockey Buzz. And Tom, that race in the Central, like it really is a divided division between the haves and the have-nots. Like it's important to finish first there, because, the bottom teams, the teams that are fighting for that last playoff spot, they haven't shown they can beat the top 3 teams in that division. Those 3 teams have been, very similar in terms of their records, still are. And Tampa Bay, which is probably has the most talent in the league, Carolina, who's probably played the best, most consistent, and then Florida, you can't take them for granted. Bill Zito's done a tremendous job.
Change the culture there,
Yeah,
that's going to be that first round series between the second and third place teams in that division. That's going to be some good hockey, right?
Good. Well, and Florida has become a kind of a physical team, and they're hard to play against. That's for sure. And speaking of hard to play against, this is my theory about the East as well. Like, Washington's got some big bodies. They're heavy. They're a heavy team. The New York Islanders, of course, are hard to play against because they're a defensive-minded organization. Now that's Barry Trotz's MO. And the Bruins, of course, are the Bruins. They're always hard to play against. That's who they are. That's their culture. But this year, the Penguins have been hard to play against. And Mike Sullivan has sort of merged this group together. Like I see 4 teams there that, any one of them could win that playoff. And I mean that. I think that's a total toss-up. Like, I have no idea who's going to win that.
So, first of all, I got to be careful when we're discussing this division, because last time we talked about this division, I kind of dismissed the New York Rangers. That they're not going to make it, and the Ranger fans were not too happy about that. They're still.
Well, I mean, I'd like for them to, they've played as well as anyone. Look at their goals, a goal differential. Look at everything, but they've just run out of runway. I just don't know that they can get there.
Well, and the teams they've got to play, I think they're playing Washington, Pittsburgh, and Islanders. I think, or Boston's in there. Okay, not Pittsburgh. The 6 remaining games are against the top 4 teams, right? 3 of the top 4.
And it hurts them that we're in this division play now, because every day those teams above them, 2 of them are winning. So if they just alternate who's going to win, that New York can't catch up, because it would be better for them if, 2 of those teams just lost all the time and the other 2 won. But that's not what's happening. They're beating each other, and it just makes it even more difficult.
Right. So here's one of Susan Brooks, and I love her. She's a diehard Ranger fan. She's not giving up. She's trying to find a way to get in there. The Islanders' offensive problems continue. Can they survive?
I mean, that's totally fair from Susan. The Islanders are struggling. The Palmieri hasn't been the answer that they hoped it would be. They still can't score goals.
Definitely.
Call up your standings there. Look what they've done in the last 10.
So the Islanders are 4-5-1 the last 10.
Yeah. And so what are the Rangers in 10? 6?
They are 7-2-1.
7-2-1. So they've gained 6 points.
Yeah.
And what have we got going now?
So the Rangers
got to build a way for them to win. So
Rangers got 6 games left. So they run the table. They'll get to 70 points.
Okay, 70 points. And where are the Rangers at?
Islanders, they are at 49 games. They got 63 points. So they've got 7 games to play. So let's say they go 3-4. That gives them 6 points. Well, so that's 69.
That puts the Rangers in. The Rangers run the table. Yeah. And who do they got left?
I believe it's 2 against 3 of those top 4 teams. I believe it's Washington, Islanders, and Boston.
Well, it's not unthinkable that the Islanders go 3-4. That's far more reasonable. Just the way they've been playing. And, you would think they'd have the goaltending that would save them, but it hasn't been a sharp.
They lost 1-0 last night to Washington, right? So
the last night was, for sure.
Yeah. So that's typical right now. So, I mean, Susan's right. I mean, the Ranger fans, it's still, and they are playing well enough. The problem they have is that they've really played well against the bottom teams. It's Philly, New Jersey, and Buffalo, right? And it seems like they haven't played as well against those top teams, but that can change.
But that the problem is, okay, if the Rangers lose 1 game, okay, now they're down to 68, and if the Islanders, win 1 game, it just makes it more hard. But the Islanders are going south at the wrong time.
Yeah, no kidding. And surprisingly too, right? I mean, because they play with such a structured game, and if you're adding those 2, pretty decent offensive players from New Jersey, I thought they were going to help. But I guess maybe the whole loss of Anders Lee kind of now really takes place, right? You can handle it for a while, but then after a while, you miss that top player that scores a lot of goals for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to some different races too. Montreal had a big win. I don't know, it was the last night or the night before where they finally beat Calgary. It looks like now that they're starting to assert themselves. But you look at that team. I looked at it yesterday, I think, and the bottom 3 teams that are competing for that 4th spot were all like 4-5-1 or 5-5. Like Vancouver was 5-5.
4-4-0, 5-5. Yeah, they're really not lighting it up, right?
None of them are lighting it up. And Montreal has a 5-point lead.
Yes, they had 51. Well, Montreal's got 51 points and 45 points from Calgary, so 6 points.
6 points.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, they have a 6-point lead, but everybody's playing 500 hockey down at the bottom. You know, again, now if you're Toronto, you're looking at that and you're going, boy, you know, I got a much easier path.
Right.
Now it's the NHL, so you can always, you know, the way I always look at it is that if in the NBA, you know, the favorite team wins 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And it's not true in the NHL. So if you play that series 10 times between 1 and 4, that 4 might win once or twice.
Yep.
And so maybe they got a 20% chance of winning.
Yep.
So you just got to hope that's your time.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
How about the West Division there too, with St. Louis and Arizona fighting out? St. Louis now St. Louis has still got 3 games in hand over Arizona, and they're 2 points ahead. So
to me that looks like St. Louis is going to rise up there. I mean,
Arizona's got cold too. I didn't realize Arizona's 2-8-0 in the last 10. Oh wow! I didn't realize that.
They just haven't been able to.
Yeah.
They don't score enough. They're too defensive. They're not too defensive minded, but they're counting so much on their defense.
Do you think? I hate to say this because it's a former player, but if they don't make the playoffs, think Rick Tocchet's in trouble?
Nope. I think they know he's a good coach.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to give him some players to work with.
Speaking of coaches, did I hear a rumor that they've announced that John Tortorella is not coming back next year at Columbus? Or I
didn't see that. If it happened, I missed it too. Then
maybe somebody was speculating. I don't know. So okay, let's do this then. Of all the coaches at the end of the season, who's getting fired?
Well, I think Tortorella's not going to come back, and that's just a guess. My guess is Blashill. I think Yzerman really respects Blashill, but it just may be time for a new voice there. Right. I saw Pierre LeBrun wrote an interesting piece where he basically said, "I got no idea what Steve Yzerman is doing," and I laughed because that is so Steve Yzerman. Yeah, like he keeps everything close to the vest. And I bet Steve's torn a little bit. And I think he's torn because of the fact that I think he thinks Blashill's a good coach. Yep. Blashill is like friends with Cooper and Hines. They're all part of that younger coaching. I mean, they're not young men, but they're younger than the ruling elite. They're not Barry Trotz's age or Quenneville's age. So I think Yzerman said last year that he always watched Blashill's practice. He likes his level of organization. Those guys talk all the time. They think alike in terms of players. You can tell that Yzerman shared Blashill's concern about Mantha because he traded him. So I think he really likes him. But we all know in hockey sometimes you just need a new voice and you need a cleansing breath. You need,
especially with old number 17 sitting there.
Yeah, and you and every fan in Detroit think Gallant's a given. But I don't know because Yzerman's unpredictable. But when he's had to make the hire before. He took a new face in John Cooper in Tampa, and boy, that really worked out. Right. People forget too. He hired Julien BriseBois too.
Yeah, that's right.
And what's fascinating? Kenny Campbell told me this, and I hadn't really thought about it in those terms. But Kenny Holland learned the game from Jim Devellano. He was Devellano's apprentice. Yeah. Yzerman learned the game from Holland. After he quit, he didn't say, I deserve to be a GM. Because I was a great player. He said to Ken, let me learn from you. Let me do the things you did. Okay. And he studied. He could have gotten the job before then, I'm pretty sure, just on the basis of his name. Yeah. But he didn't. He studied how it needed to be done. And then he went to Tampa, and he hired Julien BriseBois, who was considered a young, up-and-coming guy who knew what he was doing. And BriseBois learned, I'm sure, from Yzerman, and now he's a kingpin as well. So, there is kind of a hierarchy here, and they learn from each other. And look what Devellano started, I guess is what I'm saying.
I hate to do this too, but who else do we think is going to get fired? Is San Jose, everybody going to stay there?
I don't think so. I would think the changes would be coming there.
You think in Anaheim that the general manager is in trouble,
I do. Right? I mean, I only feel that way because historically that has happened when you've had the lack of success that Bob Murray has had recently.
Right.
I don't have any idea or insight on it, but generally, if you've gone 3 years and not performed well,
he's been there a long time too, right? You know, and that's successful, but.
So if your ownership, you're thinking, well, things have gotten stale. We just need a new voice.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Bob Murray doesn't know the game or knows what he's doing, but sometimes you just need to change just to tell everybody, well, you know, we're going to try something new. So,
and in Philly, you know, more and more I think about it too. Paul Holmgren's still president there, correct?
Yeah.
So Paul Holmgren, with his history, his fire, and his passion to win, you know, being around Mr. Snyder all that time. And sitting there watching the way it's going now, you got to think, I mean, this can't continue. I mean, something's got to change.
I don't know, no, but something's totally wrong there, right. To be sure. And trying to think where else we might have some change. What about Calgary? You know.
Well, they brought in Sutter, right? And so if they make the playoffs, like they look like they should make the playoffs. I'm going to guess that they're making the playoffs.
No, Montreal's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Montreal. So Calgary doesn't make the playoffs.
I mean, they're not going to fire Sutter, but I mean, is Tree Living vulnerable? I don't know. I think he's fine. You know, he's a good hockey guy.
Now the Sutters they do like to be in control, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Right? Do they give everything to him? Is he the boss? Like,
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But what about Vancouver? You know, he's done a great job of building it. I think that he's fine there.
Yeah. I think that stockpile of young talent they've got there. Right. Again, what hurt them was doing so well last year in the playoffs. Now the expectations were higher where they maybe should not have been there.
Right.
I mean, the fact that they lost Markstrom, I mean, was he wrong? Should he have paid him more and kept him? I mean, a lot of people go, listen, if we pay him so much money, then that really bites into our cap. Right now, we can't sign all these good young players we've got.
Well, but does it help him that Markstrom couldn't get Calgary in the playoffs?
Yeah, sure. Totally, yeah.
You know, so all
right, let's go the other way then. Who are the three candidates for Coach of the Year then?
I think Sullivan should be in the mix.
Yeah.
You know, probably Quenneville will be in. Rod Brind'Amour. Those are guys that
Brind'Amour, yes.
Brind'Amour has really just done a masterful job, even beyond this season. Before,
and there's a talented team in Vegas. I know they're talented, but Pete DeBoer's done a pretty good job there too, right?
Oh, he's done a real good job with that team.
So I'm going to go Sullivan, Brind'Amour, and Pete DeBoer. Those are my three guys.
Okay.
You
don't want to put Quenneville in that mix, eh? Well, we will want to spread it around a little bit. Let me think. Let's see who else we have out there.
So how about in Washington? What's the name? It's awful. I can't remember his name.
Now you've got me.
I know.
Peter Laviolette.
Yeah. He's doing a good job there.
I don't see that. Not this year. I would say Brind'Amour.
Sullivan. For sure, right?
Yeah, you know, DeBoer is a good choice.
Just, you know, all the talk, you know, the trading Marc-Andre Fleury, not trade Marc-Andre Fleury, didn't seem to bother the team at all.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with those. Those are three really good choices.
So here's one too that's in the New York Rangers circles here. Adam Fox for Norris Trophy. They were listing all his where he ranks in like points and assists and
I hate I hate that it's become all about points, but points are important to it. You know, everybody. But he's played so well, and he's a full service defense. That's what I like about him.
Oh,
he gets you the points for sure, but he can do, and he's just a poised player.
Right.
I like that about him as well.
Age too. He's been like that the whole time he's been here too. That is something.
I know. Yeah, and that's a deal. I remember when Carolina traded him, talking to Don about that because I'd seen a lot of Fox, and I really thought he was going to step right in and be a star. Right. And it wasn't. Carolina couldn't do anything. He really didn't want to go there.
Right.
And that's one of those issues that loopholes in. But I think Fox is. I think he's in the mix. To be sure.
So, every other defenseman. What hurts him though is Hedman down in Tampa, right? I mean,
it does. Yeah. Hedman is such a beast.
Yeah.
And he's just does everything as well. But I guess the way to look at it is, has anyone played better than Fox? I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I agree.
But that doesn't mean that he's going to win it. Because
I think people just view like he's that up and coming guy. They're viewing Hedman as the king of defensemen right now, right? I mean, that's certainly how people look at it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah. Well, anyway, we've gone long today, but that's okay.
Yep.
And we appreciate everyone for tuning in. I hope you'll read my story this week about NBC on HockeyBuzz.com and join my podcast on Tuesday and Thursday at HockeyDebates.com, 4 p.m. We have a guest all the time, and
great show. And you can listen to the radio version of this show on radio.co at 365 Sports. Again, that's radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody next week.